So a few people have been asking me, Jem, you have such amazing pedals. You have awesome amps. Why did you decide to get a digital unit like the Line 6 Helix? Well, let me tell you why. Hey guys, what's up? It's Jemmuel here. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into this video. I really appreciate it. And well, if you can see by the title listed above, a few of you are wondering why I decided to get a digital unit like the Line 6 Helix. Now this is something that a few people have been asking me, whether it be in my social media pages or even just having chats with people. So I thought, why not make a video on why I decided to get a digital unit even though I already have amazing gear. So a quick backstory behind my history with guitar amps, effects, pedals and stuff like that. I've been playing guitar ever since I was a little kid, and because I have an older brother who's 12 years older than me and he's a complete gear nerd, I was surrounded by amps and pedals and guitars, and that really helped spark my interest growing up. So analog gear has been very dear to my heart growing up. It's something that I love, and I'm very familiar with the sound and feel of pedals. In fact, in my pedalboard here, my first two pedals was this MI Audio Crunch box and my Crybaby wah pedal, and those pedals are still on the pedalboard I use to this day. You can actually hear it on my pedalboard demo. And yeah, because I've been so familiar with tube amps and analog pedals, I've never really been for the digital kind of stuff, with the Line 6 pod and all that stuff. Like, I never considered any digital stuff at all. I was always like, yeah, tubes for life, no solid state, yeah, pedals, gotta be good pedals. Yeah, so I was always that kind of guy. So when I got to my mid-teens and when social media started to blow up with Instagram and a whole bunch of gear pages started to arrive, the gear technology started to progress at such a rapid rate, and companies like Strymon were coming out with stuff like the Timeline and the Big Sky, and all these other companies were coming up with amazing drive pedals, and technology was advancing, amps were advancing, and then the rise of stuff like Axe-Fx, Kemper and Helix started to arrive, and I never really paid attention to those digital units. I was always about, the latest overdrive pedal, the latest delay pedal, the latest reverb, modulation stuff. So yeah, I never considered those digital units as an option that I would have. And as much as my playing continued to progress, also my career continued to progress, and my music journey started to progress as I started playing in bigger venues and studios. I was playing from different churches and different gigs and bars and clubs. And when it came to that environment of having to mic up your amp, and you either have to play with in-ear monitors or having to listen through a wedge or having to play in a silent stage, I quickly learned to realize that your sound changes when it's captured into a microphone. So I quickly learned to realize that whatever it is that you're using, when it's mic'd up and when it's put in an ISO cabinet or when it's in the studio, the feel and stuff like that completely changes. And I quickly realized that the way that reacts to your playing is very different. And what I quickly learned from those experiences in playing in bigger stages, in silent stages, and in studios, in playing in an ISO cabinet, is that the fight for consistency is something that you're always trying to fight with. Different microphones, different soundboards, different audio engineers. You don't know what sound you're really gonna get, and it's all about what helps suit the mix the best, rather than does your amp sound loud enough for you to hear. Now, my interest in the digital game began as soon as I actually got to hear and try those digital units like the AX8 and the Line 6 Helix and the Kemper for the very first time. My first encounter with the Line 6 Helix actually came when I was at a guitar workshop here in Sydney, and people were bringing their rigs in, and then there was this dude who had a Line 6 Helix, and I was like, okay, let's see what this thing is capable of. And then so the dude played it, and I was like, well, that sounds really good. So I tried it, and I was like, wow, these pedals actually sound quite real, and the amps don't sound and feel too bad at all. Like, wow, the Tube Screamer actually sounds like the Tube Screamer I've grown up playing with. Another instance where I got to try out a digital unit and made me consider wanting to get one as, say, like a backup rig was when I went to go to my luthier's place. He has a Fractal Audio AX8, and when I got to play it, it was an AC30 setting, and I was playing it. I was like, wow, this actually sounds like an AC30 mic'd up with a great mic and great pre's. It sounds like a really well polished sound. So I was like, this could be really good. So I thought to myself, okay, if I ever need a backup rig, I am gonna get a digital unit. And the digital unit that I was thinking of was the Line 6 Helix LT, because here in Australia, digital units are quite expensive. And if I was gonna pay $2,800 or $3,000 for a digital unit, I'm like, that would replace my rig. And I wasn't looking to replace my rig at all. I was just looking as a second option, as a backup rig, and possibly a solution to playing direct. As when you're playing in stages with any monitors, the fight for consistency is always something that you're struggling with as a guitar player. So you always want to get something which sounds consistent and it sounds and feels real. And the moment I decided I needed a backup rig and I decided to buy a digital unit, was when my pedalboard power supply actually blew up. Yeah, my pedalboard, this thing over here, it blew up and my pedals weren't working, and it was pretty crazy because I needed this pedalboard the very next day because I was playing for church in the morning, and this is the only piece of gear that I had. I actually have the video of what happened and I'll play it for you right now.
Guys, my drive section on my pedals is not working. Look, that's weird, that is flashing. This is like loose. I don't know what's happening. Alright guys, I'm here with my good friend cable guy Dan, and we have figured out what the issue is with my pedals not working. So, turns out these two outputs over here, my high current outputs, do not work. We encountered another problem. This socket just went inside. That's strange. Good news, fam. Oh, my drive pedals are working. All I have to do now is just to daisy chain it to the outputs of the power brick that were working, and yeah, everything works like a charm. So my pedal board just blew up after the first song, and we are gonna try and fix it here and now. Rip.
So what actually happened was I had a rehearsal at my church in the morning. The board worked totally fine. And then I had a rehearsal for another event in the afternoon, and when I plugged it in, my pedals weren't working, one of my pedals broke, one of the pedals, the power supply sockets came off, and it just wasn't working right. And then me and my friend Daniel actually got it to work again, but the very next morning when I played it for church, my board did the exact same thing. It blew up and I had to just play directly and plug straight into my amp, and that was the tipping point where I was like, okay, I need a backup rig as soon as possible. So when I finally got my Helix and I started to tweak it and I started to learn the unit, I was pretty blown away because it actually sounded like my actual rig if it was mic'd up in a studio with awesome microphones and pre's, and you can switch out the cabinets and stuff like that. So one of the ways it's benefited me is I can actually take just this one unit and get the sound from my whole pedalboard and my favorite amps and play it into a direct unit such as in-ear monitors, or if you're playing in a silent stage with a PA system. I can get the same results if I was recording my amps in a studio or at home. Now, one of the things that people need to learn about these digital units is it's not meant to replicate the sound of your amp in the room and have a cabinet, like a 412 cabinet, shaking the whole place. It's meant to be a solution if you're playing direct and emulate your rig as if it was mic'd up in a studio environment and get that consistency that you would get with awesome microphones and preamps. And how has it benefited me? Well, right now, if I'm playing somewhere at church, I can just take this one unit and set up and pack up really easy and quickly. It gives me the option to, hang out with people even quicker and get to chat with people. I used to bring my amp, pedals, and guitars, and even sometimes my synth and keys rig for, other keys players, and it would take me forever to pack up and set up, and, I just didn't want to be doing that all the time. So the convenience has been one way it's benefited me. Another way is when I'm playing in an environment that's a silent stage with in-ear monitors, or even when I'm just recording, I can get the sounds that I've always wanted to get if it was mic'd up in the studio with just a single XLR cable and get amazing results. And it's like I couldn't even tell what I was using if it was an analog rig or if it was this digital unit over here. And now with the addition of impulse responses, man, it just takes the feel and the sound of these digital units to a whole nother level. So would I actually replace my analog rig with just the Helix or any other digital unit? For me personally, I wouldn't, because as a session musician, as a touring musician, it's always good to have different options in your toolbox. Sometimes you'll play in venues where you won't know what the sound system is, you don't know who the sound engineer is, you don't know where you're going to be monitoring, so it's always good to have an amplifier as a safety net. And if you're playing in a studio, it's always nice to mic up an amp, and if you're playing in a big room like a stadium, why not crank your amps, because it's fun. But if you're playing somewhere where you're doing fly gigs and touring, it's very convenient and very handy to have something like this, because the airport people won't have to, you know, pop your pedals out and unplug your cables and ruin your pedals, and you know, you can't really fly with amplifiers, so why not carry your amplifier in this little unit here, and it sounds and reacts the same way, in terms of when you're hearing it through something like in-ear monitors, not actually having the cabinet behind you. And I guess another question that people would be asking me is analog better than digital, or is digital better than analog? Well, I wouldn't say one's better than the other. They both have their places and they both have their space and their needs. It just depends on what your needs are. If you're someone who just plays on a Sunday morning on a weekly basis, you don't do any touring, you don't do any session work, and that, you know, church is the only place you play, and you're using something like in-ears all the time, I guess having a digital solution as your main rig would be perfect for you, because you can get all the amps and effects here, and you don't need to set up your pedal board, you don't need to set up your amps and mic it up. You can get a great direct sound. It would be great, you know, compared to if you're a session guy or a touring guy. You can have a rig where you can bring to a studio session, and then if you're touring and doing fly gigs, if you're the opening band, not the headliner band, and you need something to set up and pack up really quick and easily and very conveniently, I mean, having both would be great. It's very handy. So yeah guys, I guess that's the reason why I have a digital unit. And I won't be getting rid of my analog rig anytime soon. I still love it and I still use it. But this has just made my life very convenient in a great way. It's helped my recording sessions, you know, do really well. I can just record very quickly. I've done, you know, tours with this thing. I've flown on planes with this thing, and it's very, very convenient. And yeah, it's amazing what technology is able to do, where I can just carry my rig and my sound, which I'm very familiar with, just in an all-in-one package. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I hope that this was able to help someone out there if they were deciding on getting a digital unit. And yeah, that's pretty much my overall thoughts on digital units. I love my Line 6 Helix. It's amazing. The effects sound great, the amps sound great, the cabs sound great, and the impulse responses sound great. You just gotta tweak it, and when you tweak it, it sounds awesome, just like with everything else. Thank you so much. Please subscribe and follow me on these social media platforms over here. I would really appreciate it, and let's make some music together. Peace out.